awareness around dementia and Alzheimer's. And I, having been in this space since 2014, and I still feel I really do not know much. It's such a vast topic, and there is so much to understand. And today we thought we would actually focus on the caregiving aspect of dealing with the ailment of dementia. What does it take, and how can you actually equip yourself, and how it is important to first accept that, yeah, you have a situation, but how, and just move on, and just accept it and find strength and just move on with it. So we are joined by two caregivers today who would be sharing with us their experiences, their journey, and how they have dealt with it, how they have made their peace with it, and where do they draw their strengths from. And then we also wanted to look at the whole support that a caregiver can put in place for themselves. Many of you may not know that there are many support groups which are facilitated by ARDSI. So we have amidst us today Vidya Shenoy, who is actually, she's the General Secretary from ARDSI Mumbai Chapter. She is joined by Dr. Debanjan Banerjee, and they would be talking to us about the support system that you can find for yourself in case you are dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's. So that's the broad, topic that we would be covering. We are not looking much into the medical aspect of the ailment, but more on the caregiving and support. But we do have Dr. Banerjee amidst us. So if there are any questions that may lean towards the medical aspect, then he would be here to help us out. But yeah, the focus primarily would be on caregiving and support. So that's the broad context of today's session. So a very warm welcome to all of you from Silver Talkies and our panelists today. Thank you all for joining us. For those who may be joining us for the first time, Silver Talkies is a social impact organization that has been working exclusively with older adults, so people above the age of 55. And our mission and vision has always been to promote active aging as a desirable and a viable goal for seniors. Because, based on our understanding from home and for these interactions that we've been having over years with seniors, it's our understanding and our belief that as long as all of us are active, we are going to be healthier much longer. So that is what we try to do through our work. So we have a very vibrant and a well-knit community of older adults now spread across India. So anybody who's 55 plus can become a member, can join this community. We call it the Silver Talkies Club. And as part of the club, you have like a space where you have like-minded friends. You have a whole network and ecosystem where you can interact. You never feel lonely or isolated because there is somebody to always engage with you, to talk to you. So, I was just, as I came into today's session, I was actually looking up some stats about dementia, and I was reading that as of 2020, India is estimated to have over 5 million people living with dementia. And the treatment gap in India for people living with dementia is almost 90%, which means that only 1 in 10 patients receive a proper diagnosis, treatment, and care. So that's the reality of the situation. And so I think it's all the more imperative that we equip ourselves with the right knowledge and be prepared for whatever may come across our pathways in this life journey. In the case of Dr. Soumya, my co-founder Reshmi would be leading that interaction. So that's segment 1, where Reshmi will be speaking to Major Sanjay and Professor Bharath. And that would be for about 20 minutes. After that, we will have about 10 minutes for a Q&A. And then we get into our second segment, where Dr. Debanjan Banerjee would be in conversation with Ms. Vidya Shenoy. So Major Sanjay, as I understand, you have been a caregiver to your father for last 8 years, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And I was looking at your introduction, and it says that you actually were an army officer with the peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka, and then you joined the corporate sector, and now you're currently CMD of Lotco Media, right?
That's right.
And Professor Bharath, you were with California University, but you came back to India, and you're now professor at Kriya University, and you are caregiving for your wife. Is that right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So would you, could I ask you to kindly, share with us very briefly, how and when the diagnosis happened, what were the kind of things that you were observing, say in case of Major Mehrotra, your father, and Bharath in your wife's case, and how did that happen, and how did you deal with it? Bharath, would you like to go first?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good offer. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I will. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This has been quite a journey, I have to say, for everybody involved, not just my wife, but for myself, other attendant family members. So the thing with dementia is that it often starts off very innocuously. In my wife's case, this was almost 13 years ago, when she noticed she was getting a little bit more depressed, a little less socially involved, and so on. And at that point, didn't think much of it, thought maybe it's situational or something. But then as time progressed, found other things, found greater levels of confusion, inability to handle simple tasks, certainly confusion with computers, and after a while confusion with driving, and so on. So it was about 6 years from when the symptoms of depression first arose that we as in my wife and her sister was nearby, and the assorted families realized, okay, this is something more than just depression. From then on, it's been quite a journey. She little by little lost drive to do anything. After a while, it's just me and my wife. We don't have children, and we were living in the US, so I would have to do everything for her. I mean, she was physically mobile. That was not the issue. But she had no drive. I would have to not only cook, but I would have to not only set it on the kitchen table, but I have to place it on a plate and put it in front of her, and only then she would eat. And I would have to lay out her clothes for it, with just complete loss of drive. And then it went on after that. I couldn't trust her alone in the bathroom. I'd make sure the door was always open, some gate issues. And it became clear that I needed a lot of help. I saw a few neurologists, and it didn't fall neatly into one of these very easy slots like Alzheimer's and so on. As Dr. Banerjee, I'm sure, would talk more about it. Dementia comes in many, many, many forms, and they're not easily diagnosable. There's no tests that I know of. So this fell in between the cracks, and they called it Parkinsonism because it showed some signs of Parkinson's disease, but it was not fully so because the dementia came first and the physical aspects came later, and so on. It got to be very hard, so I moved back to India 5 years ago because I knew that I needed a lot of help. People told me the dementia, the diagnosis is not important. There's really no medication to speak of. What matters is minute by minute care. And that's not a moment has gone by when I'm not really grateful for the society around here in India, because there is that kind of help available of excellent quality. Here in Bangalore, I work with an NGO called Spandana, and they provide me a series of well-trained and young women with a really good, cheerful attitude. And so I've been living, and my mother lives close to me, my aunt lives close to me, like, literally 2 doors away. And then I've had two, now, the beginning one, now 2 or 3 women, young women who stay and help me take care of my wife. And at this point, my wife she's really my little baby daughter. I've lost my wife long ago, and she has no muscle control. She cannot speak. This has been the case for 3-4 years now. It just gibberish comes out if she tries to speak. But we'll talk more later. I don't want to take up Major Mehrotra's time, but there's a beautiful person there still. Very diminished, but there's a spirit there that I can still see, and it keeps me going. It's not easy. We can talk more about it, but it keeps me going. Yeah, hand over to.
Thank you for that heartfelt sharing. Thank you. Major Sanjay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So basically, I'm from Jharkhand. My parents used to stay there in Jharkhand, and unfortunately, I was not there when this thing was diagnosed. I was in Bangalore, and my parents, they used to stay in Jharkhand alone. And my father always was very lively, and he was working till last 10 years back. Right? and he was driving car also, and like he was perfectly fit. So how how we came to know, whenever we used to call father, where is the mobile? He doesn't know where he is kept his mobile. From here we started noticing that there is something wrong. Mama, yes, of course, she's also old, so she never like she always used to complain, Papa, like I don't know why he behaves like this. She used to take that way. So like it took around 2 to 3 years to understand, like we understanding actually what is going on. So finally we took him for a doctor consultation. There he was diagnosed like he's suffering with first stage of dementia, and since then he's staying with us, and I'll talk in details whenever and today what I'll say ki, now he behaves like a child and I behave like a father, and no, he's fine, he's doing good.
Thank you. Rashmi, over to you from now.
Okay, sorry about the disturbance. One of the things that, Professor Sethuraman touched upon it a little bit, both your father, Prabha, they were all extremely accomplished people in their own right. How have both of you dealt with this change, that complete change that, like you said, you are the father, he's the child now. So how are you all dealing with it, mentally, in terms of as a family? What has been the journey like? Would you like to continue, Major Mehrotra, since you were on that track?
Sure.
Thanks.
So we are 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Here are what I like to bring. We 4 are different for him. For the patient, we 4 are different. Initially, he was staying with my elder brother. So there was a caregiver. So what we saw that like he started abusing, he started manhandling, and a lot of anger was there. So personally, when I visited, I saw this changes in him. But the way I dealt with him, it was entirely different. See, I'll tell you here, with my experience, a touch matters a lot. It matters a lot, more than any other medication. And then I started talking to him in a different way, in a very different way, like we are friends. Like I used to tell me, okay, Papa, you tell me, what is the name of your bicycle? I'm talking about way back in 50s. Then he told me, yes, I used to ride really bicycle. And Papa, can you tell me about your girlfriend? We never spoke like this, but now he has started. Of late, he started talking. Then we started singing and everything. He changed. He changed a lot. Today he is here in Bangalore with me, and he traveled from Ranchi to Bangalore. It took 7 hours. Trust me, not a single trouble. And what I was doing with him only, this I know he understands everything. And I can challenge this. Before coming, for 3 days, I said, Papa, we'll travel by air. Will you? He said, yes. Will you travel? Yes. Always. I kept saying, Papa, it will take 8 to 10 hours because we are staying in Hazaribagh. From there, we'll travel to Ranchi. It will take 3 hours. Then again 2 hours, boarding time, this, that. And then we'll reach Bangalore. And again from Bangalore airport to home, it will take 1.5 hours. Will you travel? So he used to not respond that much, but he was, yeah. And he traveled. And throughout the flight, I was playing with him. I was just playing with him. I was touching him here, there, just making faces, touching his hand, holding his hand, talking anything. I don't know what we were talking about. Just talking, showing him magazine and all. And the journey was so comfortable, so comfortable. And now finally he's here and is very happy. I also observed one thing, the relationship with my elder brother. He loves him like anything. But as I told you, the touch matters.
That's really important for everyone to know. What about you, Professor Sethuraman? How have you coped with this?
No, Reshmi, the question you asked is, in some sense, has been the central question of my life over the last 5, 6, 7 years. How do you deal with it? I just got to be open. It's just an unending sequence of grief at all stages. And this is a very weird kind of grief. There's one kind of grief you have when a person you love just leaves all of a sudden, heart attack, whatever. The person is gone, and you at least have some respite, some space in which to recover. That's not the case here. What we should recognize is a person is much more than the anatomy. And in fact, the person primarily, as we know them, is a sequence of memories, capabilities, emotions, and so on. And when that person loses the certain abilities, certain expertise, and so on, you realize you've lost a little bit of the person. And the person cannot drive anymore. You realize that person is diminished. And you don't, in the beginning, I didn't realize that what I was doing, that what I was feeling was grief at each stage. And you don't really at the same time have time to process that grief, because the more the person is diminished, the more the person needs you, the more you need to step in and care and take care. And so it's just, that is the nature of this game. It's an unending series of grief, and you have to cope. It's not an easy journey. It's not been easy. I mean, yes, I might be providing all this, and I'm sure Major Mehrotra will back me up. But every day you feel good at some times, you feel very small at other times, a lot of depression. You reach out to friends, you need support, but at the end of the day, and particularly this is in my case, we all depend on our partners a lot. That's what we go through in life. And when your partner becomes the patient, and soon in this case, my partner is now my little baby girl, well, you have no one. You have absolutely no one to lean on, no one who will own this problem, co-own this problem with you. And it's a huge problem. Every day I'm responsible for the life of this person. I mean, although the day, minute by minute care is provided by someone else, I step in every now and then. The fact of the matter is that, so to speak, the buck stops with me. I'm constantly monitoring blood pressures. I'm checking to see, have they checked for bed sores? UTIs, is the urine smelling different? Is there a different, why is the mood down today? Dealing with the fact that she's not able to swallow now, how to prepare the food, how to deliver the food. I'm dealing with all of that. And that's resting on my shoulder. And this is the person was my partner. We've traveled a lot, had fun. Just 2 months ago, last month actually, we had a 25th wedding anniversary, and she didn't know that, and you got to deal with that. Well, thank you. Yeah. So that is the journey. And caregivers need to know that, and they need to know that you have to draw on huge wellspring of strength, but also you need to lean on people, be open and lean on people, and just cry for help. And that's particularly true, right, Major Mehrotra, for guys. And aap jaise fauji jo aadmi hai, all the more so, because you have to show that you're strong. And I mean, I have to show I'm strong, because if I collapse, my caregivers will their motivation levels will go down. So it's the same thing. We just have to go on. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You raised a very important point. You said the need to stay strong, and this is a very important aspect, because caregivers take up so much on themselves, because they feel that, okay, if I fall, what will happen to this person? But I'm sure at the same time, both of you have looked at aspects in your own life that help you stay that way, right? Whether it is getting external help, whether it is your self-care. So it'll be great if you could come up with some suggestions, something. For instance, the part about touch that Major Mehrotra spoke about, that's so important. So if you could give us some practical suggestions or tips about how to first take care of yourself, how to create that caregiver support system, and then for everyone who's listening in. Would you like to continue, Professor Sethuraman?
Sure. I'll be a little brief. I don't want to take up more time than Major Mehrotra. No, there are many things. In my case, I mean, I've gone through some very deep bouts of depression and so on. But one thing I'm glad has stayed constant is that I do 20-25 minutes of yoga, stretch, push-up kind of routine every morning, 7 days a week, and I have not given that up. And in addition, I 3 to 4 times a week, I have aerobic activity. I cycle or get on a treadmill, and I have not given that up. That is important. I think physical thing is important. A different thing I will actually say that is, in some sense, you need to embrace your situation at some point. You can't say, oh, woe is me. You can't say, why me, or why Prabha in my case. You just have to embrace it. And if you embrace it, I have been fortunate. There's actually a lot of blessings in the situation, strange as it may seem. Even as my wife is now a little baby, there is a spirit there, and that spirit talks to me. I feel privileged in some sense that I'm in some sense staring at the very core of existence, where all abilities have vanished. And yet, I spend 15, 20 minutes every night sitting by her bedside as she goes to sleep. That's another thing I do. And yes, Major Mehrotra, touch is very important. So I hold her hand, and, she, because of Parkinsonism, she holds it so tight, that's part of the thing. But I can see little variations when I'm talking to her. She picks up on emotion. This person who has so few abilities whatsoever picks up on emotion. So I sometimes talk my cares to her, and sometimes as an experiment, and she picks up on the concern in my voice, and she tries to talk. Now it comes out as junk syllables, but I can tell she's responding. So I don't know. It gives me some sense that at some level she's understanding. But the point I'm getting at is that too can give strength to embrace your problem, to recognize that this is what life is about at the end of the day. And I would say that to other people as well. Face it, be aware it's a tough journey. You've got to cry. I mean, guys, and just whoever's there, cry. It doesn't matter, cry. I don't do it in front of my caregivers, but they know I do it. Yeah, I'll let Major Bharath. I don't want to take
out loud. Thank you for saying that out loud.
Oh, you have to. I mean, this morning I was crying away like crazy. And sorry, really quick. And it was so bad. What the issue was that I called up a friend of mine from the US, and he was counseling me. So I was crying. The way it goes. I'm just going to say it. It's the way it goes. It's not easy. As I said, you're down at the level of very basic existence, and I feel privileged to be shown what that means. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Mr.
Would you like to share your perspective?
Same, I think what Professor said is exactly same with me also. Same. First thing is that you have to keep yourself fit, physically and mentally both. That both is very important. If you are not fit, then how you are going to take care of your patients? So firstly, you have to be fit 100% physically and mentally. And the rest, all other things, what Professor said, same. I do agree. Yes, they understand. Whatever you say. Even today, if I want to purchase a land, I discuss with him, Papa, I'm going to purchase this land. This is the cost. What you say? He will react in a different way. But yes, I know he understands that. With his some reaction, you'll come to know, okay, he's with you. He's saying yes. So always discuss with the patient. Always discuss everything with the patient. If he's senior to you, always give him respect. Ask his, his opinion. That's it.
So keep them involved as you would in a regular situation in terms of talking to them, right?
Yes.
Okay. May I just jump in just on what you just said, Reshmi? See, one of the things I say is my job is to create an environment of love in the house. That's how I see it. I don't anymore do minute by minute care. Like I said, I can step in if need be. But if I create that environment of love, I show that, I care for her and so on. What happens is, and therefore I show that love to my caregivers. I never had children in my life. I suddenly now inherit a sequence of young 20-year-old women who are like my daughters. I treat them like that. I mean, it's like family, just let them do what they want. They pick up on it. And they shower so much love on my wife, who's like a little baby. It's easy to shower love on a little baby, it's true, but they do. And I think that's something that's extremely important. And you, because you said the patient, to whatever extent she is comprehending, knows she's part of a family, knows she's accepted, knows that she has not been abandoned at some level, right? I hope that what we are doing, what I'm doing, means that whatever level of existence she is not frightened. That's what I can hope. You know, keep her physically comfortable and surround her with love. That's all I can do.
Absolutely. So one of the things we want to touch upon is your own work life, right? Both of you, I'm assuming, and from what we have heard from Soumya also, is that both of you do have busy, careers. So how has that, even if you're not doing the day-to-day caregiving, you're still involved to a great extent, you're still checking in continuously. So how do you balance that? Major Mehrotra, would you like to tell us?
Sure. So earlier we had kept one nursing assistant. Now we don't. I have not kept that. Because
could you come closer to the, I'm also finding it hard to hear.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's perfect.
Yeah,
okay. So now we don't have any nursing assistant. It's only me and my sister. My sister also stays here nearby. So sometimes he stays with my sister or with me. So starting from our morning activities, we do take care personally. Because what personally I had felt when nursing assistant was there, my father, he never wanted to take bath. He used to struggle for that. And then, manhandling and everything, that what it started. But now he enjoys. I take him to the bathroom like a small baby. Papa, let's have a Ganga. We'll play with water. So every day we play while taking bath. He enjoys it. That's the way. And then I had to go for office around 11 when I leave. And then after that, my mother is there. Then again, I come back at 1 during lunchtime. Then again, I go back at 2. Then I come back at 4:30. So for these 2-3 hours, my mother is there. She takes care. And I think we are happy right now. It's okay. Like we can manage.
Between the three of you, you're able to manage this.
Yes.
Which is quite fantastic. And does this impact your work life? Have you reduced any workload as such?
No way.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay. That's wonderful to know. What about you, Professor Sethuraman? Would you like to add?
No, I cannot say I've been that fortunate. I'm glad, Major Mehrotra, that's happened. No, it's not been easy. For one, as I said, I don't have anyone I can share this with, the responsibilities. I'm the sole caregiver. I'm the sole warrior in chief, but also the only warrior in some sense. And it has affected me a lot. I was, teaching a course here and there in Bangalore at, universities, but I have to say, that's about all I could do. But then after a while, the individual, the professional part of me, which is also an important part, felt like, okay, I'm not, I'm not fulfilling myself. So I've taken up this position at CREA, and it's great, but, I have a few CREA colleagues here. I cannot claim that I'm doing a great job. Doing advanced mathematics, it needs peace of mind, and I'm not able to do a great job. But I am. On the other hand, what this has helped me is I'm a way better teacher now than I was before, and I take pleasure in that aspect of my profession. The research aspect has come down. I'm just not able to focus. But it's not easy, and my mind all the time is here back on Prabha and what's happening and so on. The kind of focus and attention that mathematics needs, it's hard for me to put in. It's not.
I'm going back to something which Major Mehrotra had mentioned about traveling with his father. And the reason I'm asking this is because caregivers often feel how difficult it would be to travel with a person with dementia. So if both of you have done, some amount of traveling, it would probably help a lot of people here if you could, give us some guidance. What are the things to keep in mind when you are traveling with, the person you're caring for? Major Mehrotra, would you like to tell us a few points that you...
Yeah, sure, sir. What I said earlier also, you have to basically prepare them. So what I did, last 3 days, I always used to talk only this. Papa, we have to travel. Papa, we have to travel. Papa, we have to travel. That's it. And you have to make very comfortable. Okay, we'll travel. While traveling, what you have to do? You have to keep engaged. Sorry. That engagement is very important. Now, how you do that? That's your touch, what you're doing, what you're talking. That's very important.
And what about the journey itself? Any aspects of it that one needs to keep in mind, plan for?
Plan B, yes, always. Regarding, you never know. At times, he's not in, things are not in his control. So plan B is always there. Carry something like that, so that in case if required, so you can change over and all. That, yes, you have to keep in mind. And that's a very important thing. But in my case, it's never happened. Nothing happened. It was very fine.
Okay, we hope that continues.
Thank you.
Professor Sethuraman, would you like to add a few points?
I hope you won't be disappointed in the answer, but
no, come on.
my advice to those who want to travel with a dementia patient is don't. Don't. It's not easy. First of all, there's many different types of dementia. And I'm reading between the lines. Major Mehrotra's father is like this, but certainly it's true for my wife, is that they're very docile and very easy to manage. But many dementia patients, and I see some of that on the chat box, they are violent and abusive and so on. It's not a good idea. Second, I think it is true that dementia patients can't take too many new things. To whatever extent they're alive to stimuli, they want it all minimized. So they want routine. And travel is very disturbing that way. I have traveled twice. Once out of necessity when I moved from the US back here, and that time my wife had a little bit more functionality. But even then, I brought a friend along. I was so grateful to her for joining us. I needed 2 people, to handle all the issues. Another time, I actually, when her capacities were a lot more diminished, and I was in Bangalore, we went to Europe, and I took her, we took with a caregiver. It was very difficult, and there were some infections that set in. And to this day, I'm quite mad at myself for doing that. I don't think it's a good idea. If you have to, that's a different matter. But I wouldn't do it on a lark. Yeah.
Okay, so only if you have to, only if it's necessary.
Right. And then you see, here's the thing: there are no manuals in this. There are, each person has to write his or her own textbook on this. Each patient is different. So what you have to do, after a while, you become the best judge of what to do. And sometimes you need to bring 2-3 caregivers along. Sometimes just one, but a whole supply of diapers. You need to bring a wheelchair. You figure it out, right?
Absolutely. And that's very true what you said. There's no manual really. It's each person dealing with the situation.
Right. And I think it's important to remember that, in the process, there are many types of dementia, and each one presents its own challenges and its joys.
Yes, surely. So we do have, in the interest of time, we do have questions in the chat box, which I shall ask both of you now. And if there are any medical questions, we will address that to Dr. Banerjee. So this is a question from Revati, who's asking how to develop patience to deal with dementia or Alzheimer's, a person with dementia or Alzheimer's. In our regular routine, it is very difficult to keep repeating the same answers throughout the day. Undoubtedly, as children, we too have been bothered by them, but in regular life, and let's all be honest, we all have our good days and bad days. So how do you develop that patience? So this is addressed to the 2 of you, definitely. So do tell us your suggestions.
See, I had mentioned one thing, we are 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My touch is different. My brother's touch is different. My younger sister's touch is different. That you have to work on it. Doctor can only counsel you. You have to develop inside you. That's it. You have to work on that.
Yeah. You have to find it within you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. What about you, Professor Sethuraman?
I agree. I agree. That's really what it is. I mean, this is, as I've said, this is a tremendous growth phase for the caregiver, as much as it's a downhill lack of growth phase or decay phase for the patient. You have to go deep into your resources. And in the beginning, yes, we're human. We get angry. Couldn't you understand this? How many times do I have to tell you this? Could you stop repeating? But slowly, you develop a compassion. And you have to get to the point where you recognize that this patient, no matter how violent or aggressive, and I've been blessed, Prabha was rarely so, is really not in control of themselves, and it's just neurons that are dying in the brain. And once that perspective develops, that point of view develops, it's a lot easier then to be patient. It's a lot easier to be patient. And it's, again, no manuals. You just have to dig in, as Major Mehrotra was saying.
Absolutely. The next question, it's more of a statement, but so Major Mehrotra said we have to keep the patient involved in all you do. But I realized that with my father, who's 93, sometimes he gets suspicious of things. Hence, I only tell him what concerns him. Now, Dr. Banerjee, maybe you would like to weigh in here. So how does a person really judge that? How do they figure out, how much to say, what to say? In both Major Mehrotra and Professor Sethuraman's case, we realized that they really share their life journey with their, the people they're caring for. So how does one draw that balance and figure out what works best?
Yeah, thanks, Reshmi. I'm audible, right?
Yes, of course you are. Yeah, and welcome here.
Yes, thank you. Very good afternoon, evening rather. And I was actually intently listening to both Major Saab and Professor Bharath when they were sharing, because I was discussing a few days back with, in one of our programs in the World Alzheimer's Day, that we as physicians, physicians who deal with dementia care, learn the most from caregivers. The best form of care actually comes from them. It doesn't come from textbooks or manuals, even though they exist. I sincerely thank Silver Talkies for organizing this and having the caregiver's perspective, because that is where we really miss, both in terms of when we decide on policies for dementia as well as interventions. I agree with Professor Bharath that every single person with dementia is unique, and the decision to divulge how much ever you want to travel, to take them somewhere else where the environment is different, to decide on a caregiver exclusively depends on what it is, at which stage you are being diagnosed, how fast is it progressing, are they having any other medical conditions, what is the mobility. I'm sure that if there is associated Parkinson's, mobility will be a significant issue. And so there are a lot of factors, and we cannot really give a generic advice to anyone. And I have been in touch with Major Mehrotra for quite some time, and taking care of Mr. Mehrotra, his father. So definitely, I always keep telling this, that many things that we say from this side of the table, but how it gets implemented depends a lot on, it's like a toolbox. So you gather from different places, you gather from different people, and ultimately you decide that which toolkit will be best at which point of time. Coming back to where you started the question, paranoia is a very general term, I would say. Suspiciousness can happen due to a number of reasons. It can happen if there is a very minor form of stroke, especially at somebody who is above 90. It can happen as a part of dementia, which we call as BPSD, that are behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. It can also happen in the early stages of dementia, or as a part of, when a person cannot really clearly see well, hear well. So, when you are not able to when your senses are not working properly. Let's say if today I close my eyes and I'm not able to hear, I will of course be paranoid about what's going on around me, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's not abnormal. So I think it's very important to understand where the suspiciousness is coming from. See, people who start forgetting, let's say they don't get their purse once, twice, thrice, or let's say don't remember that where they kept their purse, automatically, because their memory only circles 4 or 5 individuals, the first thing you will suspect that somebody of them might have taken it. So it's, we always tell this, that it may be difficult, and I'm telling this not only as a physician who deals with dementia care, but also as a caregiver for my grandfather who had Alzheimer's dementia for 7 years. And when it all started, I didn't even have an idea that I was a medical resident, so I didn't have much idea about dementia care. So you have to put yourself in their shoes, consider their environment and ecology, and think out. Otherwise, you will be in a different world, they will be in a different world. And if the worlds do not intersect, it will be extremely difficult to take care of them.
Thank you for that, Dr. Banerjee. The next question, since this session is largely on caregiving, we are focusing on that. So do excuse us if we leave out your question. The next question is from Preeta. It actually translates to how important is it for caregivers to, for their own self-care, to take care of their own needs. Could it be dangerous if that's not being attended to? So I want to ask both of you first, and if Dr. Banerjee can weigh in after that, that'll be great. How important is it?
Oh, it's vital. It's vital. We just have to, like I mentioned earlier, physical care to start with, but then it's a personality, character breaking and making phase of life to be a caregiver to somebody with dementia, and you're constantly dealing with yourself while you're dealing with the patient. And you have to be aware. There has to be a part of you that has to be aware. And somebody just told me, another of my friends who I go to for therapy says, look, you're as much a patient as the caregiver. And that's actually very true. And so you have to reach out. You have to be aware that you are at risk, both at physical levels as well as on mental health levels. As long as you don't have an existing condition, the physical level is relatively easy. Just try and be disciplined and eat well and that sort of stuff, do your exercise. But the mental level is a challenge. It's a challenge because at each stage your very existence is being questioned. All of a sudden your entire life is being devoted to care of someone. All of who you are, your needs, your desires are just locked up somewhere, and you have to deal with the guilt of even thinking about them to begin with, and then be comfortable with the fact that yes, they are yours and it's perfectly okay to want them, and then come up with coping strategies. And it's a constant process, one step up, one step down. Like I was saying this morning, last few days I've just been very down, and then I'm feeling better now. It's a constant battle. You just be aware, reach out. And especially for guys, hats off to women. They, I think they're much more in tune with emotions. They know and they accept vulnerability. We guys, we don't. And even if some of us do want to, the system won't allow us to express our vulnerability. But we are very vulnerable at times like this. I'll say it openly. I'm an extremely fragile individual at this point. I mean, I might be speaking and laughing and all that, but I'm very fragile, and I have to accept that and say, okay, I need help, Yeah, so I'm being open.
Mehrotra?
Yeah, I agree with Professor what you say. But I had a bit different experience with my father. As I said, he had become very violent. He had become very violent when nursing assistant. He was taking care of his personal needs and all. So then I personally decided to let's do some experiment with him. And now then I started taking care of his personal needs, everything. Now things have changed. Now he's no more violent. He's no more violent. Thank God. Second thing, when nursing assistant he used to feed him. What he used to do, he used to mix up everything in a bowl and he used to feed. I said again, let's do some experiments. Now, the way I give him everything, separately. I watch what he does. Yes, it's difficult. It goes here and there sometimes. But yes, now he has started. I can say I've improved things. I've improved. I've seen that. So this is my experience.
Okay. Dr. Banerjee, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think I can't agree more. And see, when we discuss dementia care, for irrespective of whatever type of dementia it is, I think supporting, priming, preparing, and continuing to take care of the caregiver are the keys in dementia care. Definitely, that doesn't mean neglecting the individual. With all respect to the individual who is suffering from dementia, taking care of his or her dignity, autonomy, respect. You know what Professor Bharath was mentioning about having your own needs, your desires, and feeling guilty that how can you feel that when somebody is suffering? I mean, I'm really happy that Professor Bharath brought this up. I'm not sure how many of you have read Before I Forget, but it's a brilliant book worth reading, where one of a lead US model gradually develops dementia, and both herself and her husband writes down the book, and she starts writing it even when she's in the earliest stages. And this is exactly what is focused throughout the book, that let's say it as simple as something that, let's say my wife or my grandmother has dementia, or my mother has dementia, something that they like to eat, which you also like to eat. And you really are feeling to have that to de-stress yourself, but you cannot, because you start feeling that you are doing something guilty, which you are actually not, But then it's very difficult. Sometimes I really feel that there may be a lot of differences between what we tell the caregivers and what they're able to do. And hence, if anyone in the audience knows anyone caregiving for dementia, it's very useful to watch out for signs of anxiety, depression, thoughts of self-harm, sleep disturbances in them as well, because many of them may not express, or many of them may feel that this is but natural. I'm really thankful that Professor Bharath is seeking help. Many people known to me seek help. I'm glad that Mr. Mehrotra is doing better now. So, Major Sub is, at least now he's in Bangalore and things are better. But I have seen many who break under this pressure. And you know what happens? It's like, I always give this analogy. It's like the engine of a flight. As doctors, we can always prepare it while it's on the ground. Once it takes off, you do not take care of the engine goes, the flight goes. So the individual with dementia will also suffer equally if you do not take care of the caregiver. Because of the stress, there will be burnout, and that will ultimately transit into care for the individual who probably will not be able to voice out his or her needs. So, it's imperative that the caregiver, whoever it is, and caregivers can have different profiles. By caregivers, I also mention paid caregivers, nursing assistants, not only family members, because for them, it's a job profile and there are pressures from both sides. It also means people who are in organizations, who are in daycare centers. So different profiles have different challenges. And I think as I keep mentioning, it doesn't need to be a physician or a mental health professional for this. Everyone listening to us today can actually be a dementia care advocate for the caregivers. That's where probably the success of the program that you are doing lies.
Thank you very much for putting it so clearly for all of us. We'll take one last question. This is from Michelle. Before we move on to the next segment, this is from Michelle. How does one test in advance for early onset dementia, and who could we contact to be tested? I guess this Dr. Debanjan Banerjee would have to answer this. And if both of you would like to weigh in with how it was for, in the initial days, how did you get the diagnosis? Probably that would also be helpful. We just have to keep it a bit brief in the interest of time.
Yeah, maybe I'll just, while starting off the next segment, I'll start by answering this. Let Professor and Major Sub, put down perspectives.
Okay, so because that would probably be important. Many times people are confused. It's passed on as, age related. So anything you'd like to point out?
So, sir.
No, go ahead, Major Bharath.
Okay, for us, it was initially it was a totally confusion. I said, now it took around 2 to 3 years to understand exactly what is happening. So for me, it was total confusion. When we observed that he forgets when he has gone to market, when he's coming back, so he's he forgets the way. Then we realized, okay, there is something seriously wrong.
Yeah.
Could you take the mic closer to you if you don't mind? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
So I said, now it took us 3 years to understand exactly, right? So here I think Dr. Banerjee is the right person to say about it. We are also we are not aware of it.
Yeah.
Right. We'll definitely come back to him. Professor Sethuraman, anything to add here?
Very quickly, I'm sure we want to go to the next segment. Yeah, like I said, in my case, it took almost 6 years from when, in hindsight, the symptoms first came on before we realized there's actually something more serious than depression. Dr. Banerjee can speak more, but there are various reasons why the dementia develops, and the kind that are slow to develop. And the general public should know, and Dr. Banerjee will back me up, by the time even basic symptoms start for most of these dementias, the decay in the brain has started 20-25 years prior. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So most of these dementias are slow. So just be aware just that this could be dementia, but don't panic yet. You will know. Again, there's no manual. You will know. You know your loved one well. At some point, you realize this is over and beyond just normal. It's not forgetfulness and so on. There's been such a drastic change of personality from 4 or 5 years ago, so on and so forth, or such decreased abilities. You will know. I don't have magic key.
So who would have been the first point of contact in terms of a medical person you went to? Because many times people wonder who to go to.
Yeah, in my case, I actually directly went, well, not directly. So in the US, I was part of what's called an HMO. And at some point, I spoke to our physician who agreed and immediately referred me to a neurologist. They took some basic tests and so on. But really, I mean, Dr. Banerjee will speak more, but there wasn't much that the medical profession could do at that point. Some dementias, yes, I'll let him speak on that. But yeah, but you will know that, as I said, at some point it's your loved one. You'll realize it's a dramatic change from where it was 3 years ago in Major Mehrotra's case, 6 years ago in my case. Something is seriously wrong.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll move on to the next segment. Nidhi, over to you. Thank you all very much for your answers and guidance.
Thank you.